So we're here at the ethics area of the slideshow, obviously. We're looking at key stakeholders. So obviously the Airbnb hosts themselves are going to be stakeholders. They rely on the platform for income and are impacted by listing removals and quality control policies. The travelers and the guests, they seek unique and authentic experiences and are affected by quality and availability of listings. The local communities, obviously, as Coloradans, this is one of the main issues for us, particularly in areas, Barcelona, where over-tourism and housing shortages are a key concern. But for us personally, think of Breckenridge, Vail, any mountain town. Obviously, Airbnb is going to impact us significantly in these areas. And also here in Colorado Springs. Not here in Colorado Springs because I'm not, but you know what I mean, where you are in Colorado Springs. Regulatory bodies, governments always want their money, no matter what's going on. If you're making money, if you're having a happy life, the government wants to take that away from you. So governments and regions imposing regulations, particularly in Europe, crucial in Airbnb's for their expansion strategy. Also, it's really interesting utilizing Airbnbs in areas where you have to record where you're staying in a hotel, because you would just normally give your hotel name, but whenever you're traveling or visiting or working in areas that you're staying in an Airbnb and they're like, oh, what's the name of your hotel? And you're like, Airbnb. They really have no concept of what this is. So governing bodies is an important stakeholder in this issue as well. Our key issues, we have over-reliance on saturated Western markets. This limits Airbnb's growth opportunities, particularly in regions with regulatory barriers. That's obviously going to be our mountain towns for us here in Colorado. Operational complexity, balancing quality control with host recruitment is straining growth and user satisfaction. So how does Airbnb guarantee quality? And on top of that, culturally, what is the definition of quality in other markets outside of the United States and outside of the West? Regulatory backlash, local governments, especially in Europe, are pushing back due to issues like over-tourism and housing shortages. Of course, this isn't really surprising that this is happening in Europe because it's just communist, but communism spreads, so we must fight it. A lack of strategic focus, uncertainty in prioritizing accommodations versus experiences is diluting the brand's identity. This is happening a lot. Airbnb was like, how do we make more money? So they came up with the experiences. And the question is are these experiences taking away from the main focus of what Airbnb is, which is short-term rentals? We have groups inflicted with significant, undue, inappropriate harm. We got local residents in heavily touristed cities. These communities face rising housing costs and quality of life issues due to Airbnb's impact on the local housing market and tourism overload. Some Airbnb hosts may face harm if they are delisted due to quality control measures without enough support to improve their offerings. Sorry, local cops are coming by. You may have noticed that my background changed. That's because evidently I ended up on a kill list for the local Hezbollah militia. So I had to be extracted from the previous country late at night, like at 2 a.m. Ended up not being that great. But anyway, back to the host. I think that this goes back to culture. A big conversation that we're having in our group and will continue to have is what is quality? Quality to the Western countries, to the United States, to Canada, even Western Europe, is drastically different than what quality might be in Asia and definitely Africa, as well as Central and South America. So Airbnb being a Western corporation, they're going to define quality a specific way. And if they can't adapt to that definition based on local regions, that could definitely hurt them as well as hurt many hosts in the regions. Are any Daniels Fund's ethical principles violated? Great question. Let's start with integrity. If Airbnb fails to manage its listings fairly and transparently, there could be a violation of integrity, particularly regarding host treatment. Fairness. Local communities facing over-tourism and housing shortages may argue that Airbnb's operations are not fair, especially if the company does not take sufficient corrective measures to mitigate these issues. The real question is, are ethical principles violated? Ethical principles are violated every day. It's really just how are we going to look at these ethical principles and from what perspective? From a business perspective, are they violated? No. If we go down to Breckenridge and we snag up some guy who's been working at the bar, who has a master's degree, perhaps an MBA, I don't know, from UCCS, perhaps, and we ask him, hey, do you think that Airbnb is taking away your livelihood? Well, we might get a completely different answer, right? I mean, ethics in general, especially whenever it comes to integrity and overall, one of my most hated words, fairness. What is fair? Nothing's fair. Nothing is fair, okay? It sucks to suck. So there is a lot of opportunity for these ethical dilemmas. I think that Airbnb does a pretty fair job at mitigating these opportunities because it is in their best interest to have solid integrity and fairness throughout the entire business plan. The reason being, obviously, they have hosts that they have to take care of, and they also have travelers that they have to take care of, both parties. All right. So in all actuality and honestly, having both parties utilizing your platform like Airbnb makes it so that ethics and integrity, fairness is followed through more. If this was the Hyatt only cares about one person, making that money from people coming into town. That's it. That's all they care about. They don't care about hosts. They are the host. They don't have to worry about anybody else. But being a non-hotel like Airbnb has to worry about everybody because they cater to everybody. Their customer is everybody. It's the host and it is the traveler. So I think that utilizing or having this company, ethic dilemmas are less likely to happen. And I want to thank these people for walking right through my shot. Like, they don't give a shit, do they? Like, not at all, right? Not at all. Welcome to my life. All right, so we got corrective actions needed. We need to diversify into embedding markets, shifts focus from Western markets into emerging regions like Asia Pacific, Latin America, with localized strategies. Again, the key is localized strategies, as I've been going over. Streamline operations, simplify the host onboarding process while maintaining quality standards to balance growth with guest satisfaction. Mitigate harm in communities. Work with local governments to reduce the negative impacts of short-term rentals on housing and quality of life, potentially by implementing caps or restrictions on the number of rentals in heavily affected areas. Now, obviously, that's going to cause prices to fluctuate and be impacted significantly. Clarify strategy focus. Provide a clear direction for whether Airbnb is prioritizing accommodations, experiences, or both to avoid stretching resources to thin and confusing consumers. So overall, I think Airbnb has a lot to work on, as we all do. I read the feedback papers from my last presentation. I read everything. I read the feedback. I noticed things that, my audience did and didn't like. And honestly, I made adjustments based on that. I think Airbnb needs to do that too. I think they have a bright future as long as they utilize proper tools that are right there at their fingertips.